Welcome everyone. This is now week 4 of our Fall Flair Knit Along, featuring 3 different projects, knitting projects by Jennifer Beale. You'll find her designs on Ravelry. She's a Canadian designer who lives in Newfoundland now. So project number 1 is Marquise, and it is top-down knitting, seamless, I-cord borders, garter stitch at the bottom, lace detail work on the shoulders and on the A-line shaped sides. There is a little bit of color work across the center section, and that is optional if you'd like to put it in or not. The yarn that we've used is Skoka Yarn Goddess. It's bamboo with merino, sport weight, and I use 3 skeins, barely 3 skeins, and then 1 skein of the contrast color. If you're not a fan of the sheen on the bamboo blend yarn, you can use any of the sport weight yarns. We have an alpaca merino that also gives lovely drape. So that's it there on the designer, Jennifer. And then project number 2, haven't seen many project progress pics yet of this one here called Trepacy, but it is a beauty. I think we posted 1 picture of the shoulder sections before they were joined to create the yoke or the body. So this is also knit top down with no seams, and it is also in the same sport to DK weight yarns that you can do project number 1 in. And then the third choice has become ultra popular. Lamaline cardigan is worked in a fingering weight, so it's a smaller gauge. Needle sizes 3 up to 3.75 are suggested. And stay tuned because we're going to have the big reveal. We have a shop sample in, finished, and it is the Lamaline cardigan. Absolutely stunning. You will not want to miss it. And this one is probably 3 to 4 skeins of the main color and 1 for the contrast for that beautiful color work. So we'll have a little trivia incentive question today, and next week will be our live grand prize draw, and this is a basket of goodies that was provided by one of the yarn suppliers, and it has some pure wool, some bulky weight wools in there. And I can see 1 or 2 faux fur pom-poms, double point Chow-goo bamboo needles, and probably a hat pattern. So it's a nice little basket to keep you busy on a cold November evening as the days get a bit darker now, and that's when the knitters get really busy for Christmas. So today I'm just going to go over some of the blocking tips. I've got quite a few tips to share with you on the Lamaline cardigan, so I'll get to that right away. This one, I've mentioned most of the tips last week, and that's just something that happens during the knitting process. So being part of the knit along is great because you get the feedback from other knitters who've knit the same projects that you may be interested in or are starting on now. And this one I mentioned last week. The only changes I did was altering the sleeve cuffs from the I-cord attached border to simple garter stitch, just for the fact that I had better control over how many stitches I picked up, and I could snug it in a little bit so that the sleeves were not too wide, and in that case the underarm is not too exposed. I did finish it as required with the I-cord bind off, and I found that some of the project notes on Ravelry mentioned that the neckline was very, very small and snug. So because I was aware of that, I was extra careful to pick up a few more stitches along the edge as I was joining the I-cord in that section. So part of the I-cord is previously done when you do the saddle shoulder, but this section here is added on after, and I tried not to knit too tight. I think I did it on a 3.75 needle, just to ensure that my tension was loose enough to give it stretch when it goes over the head. So that's really the only 2 points I can maybe present to you to make your project a little easier. For finishing, I just soaked this in the eucalyptus for 20 minutes, and it really didn't need a lot of blocking because, of course, the bamboo is a very silky, drapey fiber mixed with the merino. So it knit up very even to begin with. Stitches were pretty well flat and smooth, and I didn't have to do any pinning. I just soaked it in the eucalyptus for 20 minutes and rolled it up in a towel to get rid of the excess moisture, and then hand blocked it onto a dry towel, left it overnight, flipped the sweater over so that it gets equal drying time, and it was pretty much dry in maybe a day and a half. Bamboo does soak in a lot more moisture than some yarns, so try to squeeze out as much moisture as possible to give it a good drying time. So I guess you'll want to see the reveal now, so I'm not going to wait too much longer and keep you in suspense, but I'm going to get her. She'll be right on camera. Ta-da! There she is. Meet Lamaline, completely finished. This one was knit in, I think, just under 3 weeks by our shop knitter. She did a gorgeous job. She's all blocked. She has some very pretty little rhinestone silver encrusted buttons on. So she's all ready for an evening out for dinner, or maybe going to the office and wearing with slacks or a skirt. So the yarn that this one was knit in is our Tradition in the charcoal, and then a nice sort of cardinal to cherry red for the contrast. So fingering weight, it took 3 skeins of the main color, 100 gram skeins of the contrast. And as we get further into the month, I'll try to post more pictures of our in-store progress on these 3 projects. We had our group in today, and I totally forgot to take pictures of their work, so I will remember next week. Just for reference, I think 2 or 3 of the knit-alongers in the group today working on this beautiful cardigan are up towards the shoulder, and they'll be ready to do the short rows and then the 3 needle bind off up at the top. So maybe what I'll do, I'll bring the cardigan closer to the camera, and then you can see some of the finer details that you can't see from back here. And I'll spin her around just so you can have a quick look at the back detail, which is equally as stunning. So this has the 3 needle bind off right down the center. That is how the 2 pieces come together. So the construction of this cardigan is piece number 1, which is front, half the back, and armhole. And piece number 2 is the opposite front, half the back, armhole. Joined together here, stitches are picked up here at the underarm and worked down. And then the beautiful border with the FLAIR KAL construction is picked up and knit in pieces. So beautiful at the back, beautiful at the front. And of course this one has the optional sleeve, which is the closed-in sleeve. The original pattern is featuring the split sleeve with the tab to button up if you want to pull the sleeves up. So off she goes for a moment. So here you can see the 3 needle bind off at the shoulder. So that's what gives that raised seam. And that matches nicely with the back seam, which is also raised right down the center. It's an interesting design feature. You don't see it too often on knitting projects, but we certainly love to see it. And then you'll also notice, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, there's this is the underarm, so I'm just holding it sideways. This is the underarm here, and this is the bottom cuff down here. So this is the Elizabeth Zimmerman faux side seam, which I was demonstrating, I think, last week with a crochet hook. It's really quick and fun to do, not difficult at all, and you can see what the impression is there, so that when you're wearing the cardigan, it gives a bit of a fold line where we would normally have a side seam. So the front of the cardigan has the detailed mitered corners. This is down at the bottom, and they're also shown on the back as well. So the instructions, somebody was saying today in our group, if they had read all the way through any of the projects or any of the patterns, they probably would never have cast on. So that is a little hint that you should not be reading too far ahead in any of your projects, because it can be overwhelming and also confusing. Just try to read one line at a time, trust the designer, trust the pattern, and everything will just make sense as you get to it. So mitered corners there, and also at the top back neck, here and here, and at the bottom right down there. So I will just give you some of the tips from this project that hopefully will make it easier as you're working through the cardigan. Get her back on her mannequin. Okay, so we'll go through, because this is the first size knit, it has a smaller armhole than each of the following sizes. So if you're knitting the smaller size and you feel that this armhole is going to be a little bit too snug, it's going to fit you just below the shoulder line, so it's going to be down a little ways. So you may end up having to pick up more stitches than what the pattern suggests, just to give it a bit more stretch and ease, and then decrease them before you get into the color work pattern. There is a little section of moss stitch here and also at the bottom. And because the sleeve was quite narrow here, instead of decreasing down the length of the sleeve, this knit-alonger chose to keep the sleeve at the same number of stitches all the way down. And as you can see, she did the seamless sleeve. There's no opening. She also added another row in the moss stitch at the bottom for the border to give it a bit more weight. It's quite a skimpy edge in the photograph. So if you want to add another row at the bottom, just be sure to do the same thing at the bottom of your sleeve cuffs. She didn't add another row along the front border just to keep it a bit more delicate and to match the size of buttons, which are quite small. So those are the tips there. I don't think there are any more. If anybody has any tips that they would like to share as they're working through their projects that might be helpful to other knit-alongers, feel free to post them in the comments. Yeah, I would also say when you're doing a 3-needle bind off, if you tend to be a tight knitter or a tight cast off knitter, go up a needle size, because you need to have stretch along the shoulder, and you definitely need to have some elasticity down the back neck, or you're going to find that this is pulling up where the rest of the cardigan is laying flat and needs to stretch a bit. So just some helpful tips there. To make your project turn out very professional and very wearable. Okay, so we'll get on to our trivia question today. So today I have an abbreviation, and this is mentioned in at least one of our project patterns. So if you feel like guessing or if you know the answer to CCO, please post in the comments and we'll pick a random winner after the video airs, and that random winner will get a ballot, an extra ballot in our draw bucket, which is behind me and it's been filling up, and that will give you an extra chance in winning next week's grand prize. So I will be back next week at 5 p.m. and who knows what will be off the needles by then. Maybe we'll have project number 2 to show you, but we'll be doing the grand prize draw live at 5 p.m. and that will be it for our knit along. So there's still another week to get your needles busy. The weather's changing, the nights are getting darker, so there's just more good reason to work on your projects. So I hope you have a great weekend and are enjoying your projects, and the stitches are flying. Thanks everybody for watching.